Good afternoon, and thanks to Coach Ninham for the opportunity here, and again to reiterate what he's saying, thanks to you guys who put some time in the gym today. It's a privilege for me to be here, a pleasure, a blessing. I was head coach at Newland and Spicer for 7 years, and it was a tremendous, wonderful opportunity for me. I'm no longer there. I'm now teaching at Oak Grove Lutheran School in Fargo and helping out at Concordia Moorhead basketball. I'm going to do something a little bit different for a while and not necessarily talk about what we coach, but who we coach. The gentlemen before me have done a wonderful job, and I'm not nearly as smart as they are, so my X's and O's won't look as good. That's one reason. But also, I think it's important that we have a good understanding of how to motivate young people, how to communicate with young people, and how to build relationships with young people. A little bit about me. I grew up in a coach's house. My father coached football, basketball, baseball, and was a summer rec director. So he pretty much coached me my entire life. And was a lot of blessings to that, but a few not so much blessings to that. And one in particular that stuck with me and helped me to try and focus on mental toughness and confidence was a lesson that he taught me. I was a pitcher on the baseball team, and I had a tendency to perhaps lose my composure, get a little wild, walk a few people, hit a few batters, that sort of thing. And this one particular day, I am pitching, and I walked a few people, then beaned one, and I was pretty much checked out then. I was sick of pitching, and I'm looking over at my father who's in the dugout, and he's not even paying one bit of attention to me, and I'm having my little temper tantrum out on the mound, and he just leaves me there. And I proceed to walk the next 13 consecutive batters. And everybody in the whole place is wondering, like, what is going on? Where is this coach? And finally he came out and he looked me square in the eye and he said, "Did you learn your lesson?" And I still was, in a bad place. I didn't really know what he was talking about. And but it stuck with me. And I've learned from that, and hopefully have continued to make progress on becoming a little bit more mentally tough, even though I'm not so sure I like that term. Or confident. But I like to use the term positive mental attitude instead of being mentally tough, because sometimes the world gives us opinion of mentally tough as a tough guy, and I'm not so sure that tough guys are usually mentally tough. But it comes down to having a positive mental attitude, being able to stay focused and not become distracted by so many distractions. How many games are won and lost in the last 3 minutes? How many games are won and lost where it's chaos, right? We call it the fog of war, right? And you don't seem like anybody's listening to anybody, and it's just they're off on their own things. They have lost their focus. And when everything goes wrong, at that moment, how we react is important. And in my mind, a key to being successful on the basketball floor, successful in many arenas in life. And it starts with coaches often. We all know those teams, those coaches, where if you can get them going a little bit, and get them focused on the refs, and get them mad at their team, they go downhill pretty quick, and the team has a tendency to follow. And so as a coach, how do we react when everything goes wrong? How does that impress your team? And we are working with a very wonderful but different generation of people. This group over here would represent them. And they are wonderfully intelligent, perhaps the smartest generation the world has seen. Right? They have information at their fingertips. If they ever need to know something, they can whip out their smartphone, right, and Google it, or figure out what they need to figure out pretty quickly. However, experts will say that their knowledge base is a mile wide, but only an inch deep. Right? They know a little bit about everything and a lot about nothing. And so keeping them engaged is a bit of a dilemma for us. And I asked Darian earlier. I said, Darian, I'm going to ask you a question. Darian, what's your favorite gift you've ever got? VIP tickets. All right. Now, right? That's good. Must have been fun, right? All right. Now, Darian, let me ask you this next question. What's your favorite gift you've ever given? Basketball. Typically, that question takes a little bit longer to get a response out of. And this generation, as with others, but this generation in particular has become more and more kind of self-absorbed, right? And we don't help them often as parents or sometimes coaches. You know, it's like, how many points did you get? How many rebounds did you get? How much playing time did you get? We focus a lot on the getting, and I don't believe that any team will reach its potential when it's about getting, because, as we all know, it's really about giving. And are you willing to make sacrifices for the team? Do we have people over here who are willing to not play a minute of a game and yet work their tail off every day in practice to make the person who's playing in front of them better? And in order to convince people to do that, that takes a lot. And it takes a lot out of those players who are willing to do that. So we need to spend time being authentic. This age is a digital age. Most of their time they're in front of a computer screen, cell phone, a TV, a movie screen or something. And so they long for authentic people. And so I have to constantly work on just being myself. Don't be something that they're going to see right through, because they're intelligent and they'll figure out if you're faking it. Or they might say a poser, right? Is that the word you guys use, a poser? Yeah? No comment? Okay. Anyway, and so they long for authentic people and especially authentic relationships. And so part of what I always try to do is spend time with them outside of basketball. You know, you might have a practice one day, or we've done it before, where we had a practice and we took all the kids and went to a movie. Or we've had all the kids over to my house, and my wife loves to cook, and we'd have a meal. And do some things that help them see you outside of just telling them what to do. Really helps them to allow them to trust you. And when you have trust established within the team, within the coaches, then they can really become a more confident, mentally tough type of team. Motivation. There's only one real lasting motivation, and that is self-motivation. We can motivate with punishment, we can motivate with reward, you can motivate with fear, and none of those are real productive. Right? If you can get your players to want to rather than have to, I guarantee you'll be successful. We not always win, but you'll be successful if your kids believe and they want to do something. There's no doubt that there will be mistakes, right? We can't eliminate mistakes. It's part of life. It's part of the game of basketball. But how do we react to those mistakes can define our character, can define our outcomes. And so, as a younger coach, I spent a lot of time working on my man-to-man defense and man-to-man offense. Too much time. And I should have spent more time on developing the character of the team, spending more time on building relationships. Because if I have a player who knows every X and O's out here, but doesn't trust me, doesn't trust his teammates, doesn't trust the system, what good is it? And so I learned that I needed to spend more time learning about the players rather than the plays. If you can get your players to play without fear, fear robs us of confidence. Fear robs us of our ability to exceed at a high level because, and most often the fear that you run into is the fear of failure. You know, you've probably all coached a kid or two that doesn't shoot enough. And a lot of the time is the motivation behind that is they don't want to miss. Now, we've also coached a few kids that shoot all the time. Right? You can't get them to stop shooting. So you have to understand your players. But one of my favorite players, his name was Jamie Moten. And he was a handful. Basically had done his own thing his whole life, so trying to rein him in and get him to be part of something bigger and beyond himself took a lot of time and energy. But he was just phenomenal to coach because he had no fear. And one of my favorite stories of Jamie is we're in this section final game. And for 3/4 of the game, everything was going well. I mean, we were playing a high-quality opponent, but we were winning. We were up by about 10 points, probably 6 to 10 points the majority of the way. And all of a sudden, things started to go south. And the opposing team has a kid who just catches fire. And it was like, as soon as he crossed half court, I'm like, oh gosh, he's going to score again. We've probably had those games before. Anyway, and so this kid is just knocking down shot after shot, and we start to tighten up, and we're getting nervous and scared, and we're worried about losing rather than just playing to win. And lo and behold, with 2 minutes and 38 seconds left, I called timeout, and I'm thinking, we were supposed to win this game. In fact, we're supposed to win the state championship. Here we are in the section finals, and we're losing. We're down 9. 2 minutes and 38 seconds left. What on earth am I going to say to these guys? Long story short, we made a comeback. We tie it up. We're into overtime. They score to tie it up with 2.3 seconds left. I get a timeout. Jamie comes into the huddle, and he looks me dead in the eye and says, if you get me across half court, I'll make it. I'm not lying. I'm not making this up. Looks me dead in the eye and tells me that. And, I'm kind of laughing inside, but whatever. Okay, so we drop the play, and sure enough, Jamie gets to about right here. Nothing but net at the buzzer. We win. Without fear. I mean, that is where it's at. That was confidence. And yep, Jamie got a little cocky from time to time. We had to rein him back in. But it was just a pleasure to coach a young man who played without fear. We had 7 rules. 1, stay focused. 2, be prepared. 3, be coachable. 4, trust in the team. 5, don't get sick, don't get hurt. Now that one's a little bit bizarre. But you can take care of your body. You cannot do stupid things as far as getting sick or getting hurt. 6, be willing to play at 100%. 7, have a good attitude. And I found that when the players knew what to expect, they were a lot more comfortable. When I told them, today's practice is going to be horrible. We are going to run a lot. You are not going to enjoy it. If they understood what was coming, they were much more comfortable with that. And communicate with each player. You've got 15, 18, I don't know how many kids on your squad, but treat each one the same and communicate with each one of them. If it's Jamie, and Jamie, we want the ball in your hand in the last second of the game, make sure that Jamie knows that. If it's Jake Essler, I'll talk to him about him later. If you're never probably going to play, but yet we want you to be a part of our team because you bring something to our team that nobody else does. Communicate with them so they know what to expect. Take responsibility. I found when I was quicker to take the blame than to pass the blame on, that became more contagious. Anyway, and I think the more time we spend on getting to know who we're coaching is as important, if not more sometimes, as paying attention to what we're coaching. Meaning and purpose. We've all probably experienced that in our life at some point. When you are doing something and you feel as though whatever you're doing has meaning and it gives you purpose, you're going to work a lot harder on it. And that gets back to that communication side of it. When we have communicated to that player their purpose and given them a meaning, regardless if it's your starting center or your third center, when they have meaning and purpose, it brings them more confidence, gives them some more comfort. Jake Essler was one of my favorite kids to coach. He wasn't very big, he wasn't very fast, but his heart was immeasurable. And it was the season of 2010, and we were pretty good. At times we were very good. And Jake made us better because every day in practice he made everybody work a little harder. And I told Jake on a particular day, I said, Jake, I've had a vision of you. At some point in this run, we're going to need you to make a three-point basket. Because Jake rarely would shoot. And so Jake believed me. Now, I'm not going to tell you whether or not I actually had that vision or not, but it gave Jake meaning and purpose. And so we are in the state finals at 2010. And Jake is in the game. He'd play for about 2 minutes to give our other perimeter players a rest. And he'd work his tail off and play great defense. Anyway, and Jake catches the ball right here about on Upper Red Lake. And he hesitates. And nobody on the other team is paying any bit of attention to Jake. He hasn't scored in a month. And at this point in the game, we were up, I think, either 6 or 7 points, but we had been up by 13 points. And so we really needed a bucket at this point. And sure enough, Jake catches the ball, hesitates a little longer, and pulls the trigger. And lo and behold, Jake knocks down the three. I could have ran out there right then and hugged him. Anyway, but Jake had meaning and purpose, and it allowed Jake to be confident, to be mentally tough, to have a positive mental attitude, and it was one of those magical moments. There are a few things, a few drills that we used, and you can pretty much turn any drill that you have into a mentally challenging, confidence-building drill. And so I encourage you to try and figure that out. And my basic idea was making them think. Breaking up the routine just enough to make those players think a little bit. And when it comes to confidence, I will tell you, I think, my opinion, the number one confidence builder is conditioning. There is a quote, well, two quotes that we lived by. One was by Thomas Jefferson, and it says, "The harder you work, the luckier you get." And the other was by Vince Lombardi, and it was, "The ones with the most invested are the last to surrender." And I believe it. We had this kid named Moose, and Moose was obviously our big boy. And we had worked with Moose since he was a sophomore. He was a little bit heavier than he should have been. And he very much hated our conditioning drills. And yet, every day, Moose was there working and working and working and working. And having me gripe at him and having me push him and having other coaches push him. Lo and behold, he's now a senior. And again, we are in a section final basketball game. Moose hasn't said a word in a huddle his entire life, as far as when I was coaching him. And we're losing. And Moose, the huddle's quiet for a moment, and Moose speaks up for the first time, and he says, "We have worked too hard to lose now." And that was it. Moose, it wasn't the set plays that we'd been working on, it wasn't the free throws that we'd been working on, it was the fact that Moose had a little bit more invested than anybody else. And he wasn't going to lose because he'd worked too hard. And I watched him. He did work too hard. Anyway, it was a magical moment. We ended up winning the game, and it was good. But conditioning We won a lot of basketball games because our kids, before the game even started, thought that they had worked harder than the other team. And I know conditioning is not fun, right? Is it fun? No, not at all. Sometimes. But conditioning can give your team an incredible amount of confidence. Again, if they think they've worked harder than their opponent, even though sometimes they perhaps haven't, but if they believe that, it's hard to stop somebody who believes in something.